This is your boy Carcino here, and this is the truth behind the Kanan character on the hit show on Starz, Power. Like I said, once I even heard the idea of them creating a show called Power and what it was based on, before I even seen a photograph or knew who was playing who, I said, the show gonna be a hit. 50 Cent's involved, oh, it's gonna be a hit. Because 50 Cent doing a television series about the streets, which he knows quite well, to make something authentic or the way it should be. And he can work with the writers to get them at a certain point where it's not authentic. He can come in and make it authentic. And be saying, no, we wouldn't say that. We would never say it like that. Or it shouldn't be said this way. It should be said this way. And a lot of people don't know how important those little things are, but they're very important in a series like this. And The Wire had such a thing, having a real life criminal as the overseer of the way the show went, so worked. So in that format, they were able to have a very successful show, and it actually gravitated to a lot of households because they could relate. And that's what Power does. Power relates. And when the script was first written, there was no Kanan. Kanan did not exist. The character Kanan was non-existent in this whole universe as far as of Power when they created this script. And the reason why the Kanan character didn't exist is because they wanted 50 Cent to play Ghost, as I was telling you before. But once they got established that Omari would be Ghost, they still wanted 50 Cent to be in the film a certain type of way, or have him in a repeated role in the film. So once he said, yeah, I'll make a guest appearance in there. So when they went to make a character to go with the script, in the original format of the script, when there was no Kanan involved, Lobos was the bad guy. He was the villain. At the end, Lobos was the guy that wanted to have Ruiz and work with him and use Ruiz as a pawn to make Ghost think Tommy ordered the hitter. So therefore, Tommy ordered the hit on Ruiz because they were so close and all of these things, and Ghost is starting to not trust Tommy, and Tommy gets him to go against Rolla and all of this, but the man behind the scenes that was pulling these strings was Lobos, because he didn't like Tommy being involved, and he felt he would have more control of Ghost with Tommy out of the way. And he can get Ghost to do more of what he wants to do, and Tommy's more of a inconvenience for him. He doesn't like Tommy and the way Tommy works, so he wanted to get Tommy out of the way by having Ghost be the one to do it, and pushing Ghost to do it, and then putting Ghost in a position where he needs Lobos. And Lobos was feeling that Ghost was putting himself in a position where he didn't need to sell drugs anymore. And that's not good for Lobos. So that's how the original script was drawn out to be. But it changed over a period of time. Certain characters like Lobos and certain characters like Ruiz, who was supposed to be killed halfway into the storyline, his storyline was expanded to keep him alive and work it down the road. There was a lot of rewrites on certain things, and changing characters' name. But Kanan comes in, adds a different element when they say, okay, well, we introduced 50 into the story. We got only a couple of scenes where we're just gonna have him in for a couple of days, do a couple of shoots, so that way he's not tied to it 100%. Mostly Kanan's locked up, and his son, who was Sean, that they wrote in it, they end up writing Sean into the script, because now it's like, okay, this bodyguard that she flirts with is now going to be the son of Kanan, the guy they end up sent to jail. It adds a different element to it now, because now the person end up doing the setting up is a figure that's behind the scenes, who you barely see in the whole show. So you don't really see him as the guy that's working all these things behind bars until it gets like down into the season. Then you start to unveil who Kanan really is, and it fits 50 Cent's character. And it's shocking how some of the elements reflect back to him in real life with the character. Of course, everybody relates to his distance with his son, and how like they have a difference between the two, and they're not like simpatico with everything, you know. So with that being said, it becomes a situational problem when you have a bad situation mixed, like let's say with for instance, his son, you know, he lost 10 years. So for 10 years, his son has become a man. When he left, he was a boy. And now he's a sheltered child, just like 50 Cent's real son. And he grew up not in a whole different world from his father. So whatever his mom say, or whatever people get in his ear, like Ghost, who's now his new father or whatever, it could turn him, or he'll believe that more than what the words of his father is telling him. It would hold more weight because of that gap that was in between. It doesn't really resonate with the fact that he lost time with his father because of what this person actually did. He's invested too much time with them. So that became his family, so he chose that side. And that's kind of like what's going on with his son, you know, his real son with Marquise, his first child. And that resonates with him. It resonates with the fact that before he went to jail, he left Sean's mom with like all of his money, which is like his lifeline. And she didn't touch any of it. When he gave out, he gave her that money, and it's like, that's for being loyal. Because 50 did the same thing with his grandparents. He gave them and gave his grandmother and stuff some money, and his grandfather was just taking the money and, you know, spreading it out with the family. In real life, 50 like, what y'all doing? And he's like, well, you know, that's because the grandfather, that's been his job as a provider. He provided for the entire family, so if he got something, he didn't want to buy himself nothing. He would just split it up amongst the rest of the family, because that's what he normally did as a provider. Where his grandmother, for instance, she'd be like, I'm going to save this for you for a rainy day. You know, you might need this money or something, so I'm just going to make sure you got it. You're going to always have something to fall back on in case, you know, something happened with this rap thing. So now, with that being said, the Kanan character adds a different element because we are being told about the relationship now, about Kanan, and we didn't really know anything about him until like the third episode. And this is what I mean by good writing. See, when you have good writing, you don't have to inject the character right away. You can make the story is good enough, people can follow it, then you can introduce this character and it doesn't disrupt any other flow. It actually adds to it, because you kind of heard about this Kanan character before you've seen him. So now you've seen 50 Cent is Kanan. But before that, you didn't know 50 Cent was Kanan. You didn't know anything about him. So now you're meeting Kanan, he's the guy that's in jail, and And when he sent Sean to go talk to his father, now we know Sean as his father. So the introduction of him was more like he was one of the guys that taught them everything they knew. And basically he ended up getting caught and going to jail, and they took it over and made it big, but they were still looking out for him even while he was locked up. They were still making sure he was okay and took Sean in, made Sean, a driver, gave him a job so that, he would have some money in his pocket and do this thing to make sure his son was okay. Now, here's the situation where it all unfolded. We learned that Tasha and Ghost actually worked together to frame 50 and get him locked up. But 50, who always assumed that it was a setup, now actually had proof when he finds out that his tail light wasn't busted, it was unscrewed, which means that somebody set him up. And because of that fact, he lost all those years with his son. And that, fueled the revenge anyway. He already knew what happened. And he already plotted his revenge. But he had to do it in the right way where he could take over the organization. When he came out, he had to get close to Tommy because he was the only other person who had knowledge or contact with Lobos besides Ghost. So you start to see the calculation of the characters. But once they made it more about Kanan and gave a figure to a face that could rival Ghost as to take over the business, then that's where the whole story shifts. Now it's like, okay, he's got he's got Ghost's team, his unit, all together. On his side, all he needed was Lobos. And the only person that could stand in the way of that is Ghost, because he knew Ghost couldn't allow that to happen. So what Ghost did was what he always do, is come out on top, outthink the other person, and then make his move. But I love the way the writing is of the characters. They're not giving you too much. They're giving you just enough to let the story develop. They're trusting you, the audience, to be smart enough to say, this is good, I'll see where it's going, let me try to pin this together here and go to next week. So, as far as the Kanan character, now we seeing him as a more flawed, out-of-date character as we are entering season 3. As he's recovering from the injuries from the fight with Ghost. The fact that he killed his son was the biggest shocking update of the entire network of the show. But if you look at it in aspect of what's going on with the character Ghost, with Kanan, you're seeing now he's going to scale back his plan to just all-out assault, let's go kill Ghost. So with that new change of thinking that we're going to see from Ghost, from Kanan, he's going to might try a whole new approach, which might open a whole new idea as to why, or like what's the angle he's going to try to take. And it's like, what did you lose, or what did Ghost take from you? Which was the business. So you might see Kanan go into the actual business, what Ghost don't want a part of anymore. We see Tommy having trouble trying to run the business. So you might see Kanan run back and take control of the streets. There's an opportunity there now if he goes back to where he could actually end up running you know, the whole street game. But that's basically the Kanan character. You know, short-tempered, but he's thinking of the old school mentality of how things were in the 90s on the streets compared to how things are in today's time. That's what they keep calling him, old school. Come on, old school. Because of the way his thinking and mentality was. His mentality was no disrespect should be tolerated. On no grounds. If you choose somebody over me, you're the enemy. That's just how it is. Everything was cut and dried. Now everything is social media, you know, and in hindsight it's hard to adjust to this new age stuff that wouldn't have been passable back in the 90s. They was like, dude, you doing way too much. Things wouldn't have not been accepted the way they are accepted now. So it's kind of hard for him to make that adjustment still. People forget he hadn't been out of jail that long. He was trying to get back in the mix, you know, get back to the grind, because that's one thing to him that hadn't changed, is he knew the streets. So he knew the code. Like, disrespect, disorder had to be met with vicious intent, but you can't do business that way now. It's bad for business and certain tactics, so he needs to change his way of thinking. But we'll see if he learns. I'm out.